Hello everyone, welcome to Vishesh Educational Videos. In this video, I'm explaining about the process activities. Process activities means, you know that while discussing a waterfall model or while discussing a spiral model, we discussed about some activities, right? The first activity in waterfall model is what? The requirement specification. Second activity is what? Analysis. Third activity is design, like that, right? We discussed some activities, right? So while discussing those activities, I told you that I'm going to discuss these activities in a more detailed way in the coming sessions, right? So here in this video I'm going to discuss the first step of this SDLC, that is a requirement collection or software specification, one and the same, this activity in a more detailed way, right? So if you are not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like and share with your friends. So let me begin the explanation of the process activity, the first process activity, software specification, and I'm going to discuss other activities like design, analysis, right, in the coming videos. So we will discuss the first activity, the requirement collection or a software specification, in this video, right? So let me begin. So software specification means, or requirement collection means, or requirement engineering means, is nothing but a process of understanding and defining what services are required from the system or a software. System and software are one and the same here, don't get confused. So software specification means you are going to collect the requirements. It is a process of collecting the requirements by understanding what the services has to be required from the software. Getting, guys? And also along with the services that are provided by the software, you need to identify the conditions, constraints that are need to be there in a software. Getting, guys? So software specification is nothing but, in simple words, you are going to understand the requirements that are needed by your software. So simply you can't do this. It is not a simple task. To collecting the requirements, to collect the requirements, you need to follow some steps. Simply you can't go there and you can't collect the requirements. No. To collect the requirements, you have a proper plan. You have to follow that plan to collect the requirements in a more proper and detailed way. Getting, guys? It is a process. Software specification is a process of understanding the requirements that are required for your software. Required from your software. And also along with that, conditions, constraints. So this is the diagram. This is the diagram of requirement engineering process. Requirement engineering process means what? Finally, the output of this requirement engineering process is the specifications, the requirements. This diagram tells how to collect the requirement, right? Proper requirements in a more detailed way. If I say requirement, simply you can't collect the requirements at a shot, right? To collect the requirements, you have to follow some steps. While explaining waterfall model or a spiral model, I told you the first step is to collect the requirements. Simply I told you that I can collect the requirements. But how? How you can collect the requirements? So this video tells that. This diagram tells that. How to collect the requirement. What are the steps you need to follow while collecting the requirements. Getting, guys? So the requirement engineering process diagram, right? First of all, before discussing the requirement engineering process, you should understand that requirements are usually two types. First is user requirements or end user requirements. So these requirements are the requirements that are needed by the users of the software. Getting, guys? User requirements or end user requirements or customer requirements. These are the high level statement of the requirement. High level statement of the requirement means they are not in detail way. They are not in the in detail way. For example, suppose, see, what I will do means, if I am a customer, I will tell that I need a username, I need a password, that's all. I don't tell what are the technologies you need to use to develop a username, what are the technologies you need to use to develop a password. No, I won't tell that. I will just tell that I need a username and a password. That is high level statement. End user always tells their requirements in high level statements. High level statement means they won't tell it in details. No, my password should be 32 characters, it should not accept special characters. No. Customers won't tell like that. They will tell just username and password, that's all. This is the end user requirement, customer requirements, right? Next is your system requirements. Second one is system requirements. So system requirements is what they are. System requirements are nothing but a more detailed requirements. I told you, more detailed requirement means username should be 32 character, username should not accept special character, like that. Getting, guys? These system requirements have more details. End user requirements, customer requirements will have little details. As a customer, I will tell that I need only username and password. As a engineer, he should understand, he should decide what are all the technologies he should use. Getting, guys? First of all, you need to understand this thing. Requirement, if I say a requirement, two types of requirements are there. End user requirement, customer requirement, or user requirement, one and the same. System requirement, system specification, software specification, one and the same. Getting, guys? Only terminologies will change, that's all. Meaning same. So how to collect these requirements? How to, whatever it may be, end user requirement or system requirement, how to collect these requirements? You need to follow these steps. When you follow these steps, it will be useful for you to collect the requirement in a very easy way. So there are 4 steps actually in this requirement engineering process. The first step is feasibility study. You can see the first step is what? Feasibility study. So in first step, what I have to do? Directly I can't collect the requirement, right? I have to do the feasibility study. What I will do means, an estimate is made of whether the identified user needs may be satisfied using current software and hardware technologies. Study means what? I will check. So yes, I collected the requirements from the customer. Once I collected the requirements from the customer, I will check whether this can be satisfied using the current technology, using our current hardware technologies or software technology. He has to check that first, then only he can proceed further, right? And the study consider whether the proposed system will be cost effective. From a business point of view, you need to check that whether it is profitable for us to develop this project, and whether it can be developed with the existing budget. Is it possible? I should check that also. Getting, guys? Yes, customer will say his requirements, but you can't select all the requirements. You can tell the customer some problems are there, I can't select it, right? To tell that, you have to do all these things. You have to check whether it is possible to develop the requirement using the current technology. You have to check whether to develop this requirement or to develop this software, whether it is profitable for us or not. You have to do these things. Getting, guys? This is feasibility study. And feasibility study should be relatively cheap and quick. You have to do this very quickly because you have to tell the customer as soon as possible. As quickly as possible, you have to tell him that I can go with the project. You can't delay this. You have to do the feasibility study as fast as you can. You have to take the decision whether to go further, or if you need a more detailed analysis. Yes, if you can't go further, if you want more detailed analysis, you can tell your customer that I need some more time, or I can't develop this requirement. You can tell that directly. You can tell that. So requirement, once you collect it, it's not an easy thing to select it or to leave it. First you have to do a proper feasibility study. This is the first step. Now what is the second step? So total 4 steps are there, right? So what is the second step? Requirement elucidation and analysis. What is this? What is the meaning of this? So see here, this is the process of deriving the system requirements through observation of existing system. I already told you, if I say requirements, there are two types. One is user requirement and another one is system requirement. You have to take care of both the things. You can't consider only user requirement, or you can't consider only system requirement. No, you have to consider both the things. So in the first step, you collected the user requirement, you did the feasibility study. Yes, you are okay with the requirements. Consider that you are okay with the user requirements. Then the second thing, what you have to do? You have to check the system requirements thoroughly. How you are going to check the system requirements? Through observation of existing systems. You have to check your existing systems. You have to check, can I develop the requirements, user requirements using this particular system? Right? You have to discuss with the potential users. You have to discuss with your customers. Not only with the customers, you have to discuss with your developers. You have to discuss with your test engineers. Right? Is it possible with our present system specifications? Is it possible to develop our requirements? You have to discuss with that people. How to discuss? Simply you can't call them and simply you can't discuss. No, you have to maintain a proper documentation. You can develop some models, or you can develop some prototypes. Prototypes means dummy models. For example, when building a house, instead of blueprints, some engineers, what they will give, they will give a model that is made by using a paper. Yes, right? Why they will do like that? Instead of giving simply a blueprint, if you see a blueprint, you won't get that clarity, right? Dummy. Instead of that, if you give a dummy model for your house, yes, or you will get a more better idea. Yes, this will look like this. Yeah, right? You will get a more better idea. They will do that. They will discuss. They will do prototypes. They will do dummy models. They will show this to the customer. Yeah, your product will look like this. Civil engineers tell that your house will look like this, right? In the same way, they will tell the software customers, your software will look like this. And if they do that, the customers can also easily understand. Not only the customers, the developer can easily understand the requirements and they can proceed further. Right? Not only you have to collect the requirements, you have to make it understand to the concerned people properly. Getting, guys? So this is the second step. You collected the requirements, you categorized your requirements into user requirement and system requirements, and you discussed with your people, the people who are excuse me, the people who are related to your project, and you made them to understand the requirements by developing the prototypes. Getting? So the second step is over, and the third step is requirement specification. This is the main step. This is the main step. This activity is nothing but you are going to translating the information gathered during the analysis activity. Yes, you collected the requirements, you discussed this, but you have to put that requirement into a file, or you have to convert that requirement into a proper document. And the document is nothing but a requirement specification. Yes, I collected all my requirements, I filtered them, all those things. Yes, but you have to put them in a more organized way, like your notes, right? You will put the explanation of the concepts in a more organized way in your notes, right? Like that. I have to put my requirements in a more organized and a proper way, in a document, in a book, in a file. This is nothing but a requirement specification. In this requirement specification, as I told you, you can include two types of requirements in the requirement specification. This is the final product. Just remember, this requirement specification is the final product of your requirements. You will see this requirement specification and you will develop your product. That means developer will see this and they will going to develop the product. So what type of requirements will be there in the requirement specification? User requirements, system requirements. So user requirements, as I told you, these are abstract statements of the system requirements for the customer and end user of the system. I told you, user requirement means these are the requirements of the customer, and no very little details will be there in the user requirements. System requirements are nothing but they are more detailed description of the functionality. User requirements contains very less details. System requirements contains very more details. Getting, guys? And requirement specification document is the final document of the requirement. Right. What is the next step? You collected your requirement and your document of the requirement is also ready. You can ask a question. Yes, your requirement document is ready. I can go with the development. No. Still one more step is there. What is that one more step? Requirement validation. Requirement validation means you have to test your requirement document. Why you have to test the requirement document? So this is nothing but this going to check the requirements for realism, consistency and completeness. So you have to check your requirements whether they are real. Is it possible to develop these requirements? Yes, you did this in analysis, right? Anyway, you did that, you checked your requirements, but once again you have to check that all, because chances are there you may miss some requirements, right? Chances are there. So to avoid that, you have to check your requirement document, right? Once again, for realism. Realism means, is it possible to yes, theoretically I can tell that this requirement should be there, but practically is it possible? Is it real? You should check that first. Consistency, you should check that requirement can be developed without any problem, with the constraints, with the budget. You have to check that. Completeness, you have to check our requirement is complete or not. Completeness means the requirement should be there in a more understandable way. It should be there. You should understand in a more better way. It should be complete. Incomplete information should not be there. Requirement document contains the complete requirements, not the incomplete requirements. If I say a requirement, it should be a complete requirement, right? So when you check this requirement document, when you validate this, when you test this requirement document, right, during this process the errors in the requirement document are discovered. Yes, obviously requirement document may contain errors. Yes, it will be discovered. Once it is discovered, once the error is discovered, you have to modify this requirements to correct that, right? Why you are doing testing? To correct my right requirements. Error to correct my requirements, those are not correct. To correct that errors, I am doing the testing. Getting, guys? So these are the 4 steps. So if I say a requirement collection, that is not a simple task. You have to follow these 4 steps. First you have to do a feasibility study, then you have to do the right hallucination. Next you have to properly document the requirement specification. Once the document is ready, you have to test that document. Getting, guys? So hope you understood the concepts. If you have any doubts, please post your doubts in the comment section. Thank you for watching the video.